Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Mic Check Podcast. This is T Word the People Champ. Here, my co-host Q. We back in this thing. We are going to be talking about the pay-per-view potential of Davis Garcia. We haven't seen any official numbers yet. We probably never see official, but anyway, no numbers yet. And what this particular fight will do for the pay-per-view market going forward. Before we start the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to the cat if you're feeling froggy, you're feeling generous. Support this channel so we can grow this thing up a little bit more. All right, so Q.
Yeah.
All right, man. So based on the buzz leading up to this particular fight, Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia, we could tell it would do better than some of the more recent pay-per-views have done, which has become like a baseline. We're saying like 200 or so, 250. I was predicting probably 600 as a baseline. I think you said probably would top at 600. But without maybe throwing out a prediction for what we think the number is going to be going forward, what do you think that this fight means for pay-per-views in general? I think we should start there. What do you think it means as far as getting people to spend money again, getting buzz around pay-per-view? Are we looking at a new pay-per-view standard?
Yeah, I honestly don't think so. I think that this is a outlier because this is two guys who have extremely different sets of cases. And, you know, a lot of the people who are Tank fans probably would guess that I'd probably say maybe about half of them are not necessarily pure boxing fans. They're just guys that know that he's a boxer, that like him from the hip hop world, from, you know, movies and actors and actresses and that whole realm of things. And I think the same thing is true for Ryan, but probably even more so. I think that Ryan, probably about 75% of his fan support and people that follow him on social media are people that are not boxing fans per se. So when you talk about two guys that have that much quote unquote crossover appeal, where, you know, the large sum of their fans come from people that don't regularly watch boxing cards, obviously I think that this fight will do better than most boxing pay-per-views have done in the last years or so, which is why I assumed that it would do somewhere around 600. But I don't think that this is going to set a standard for other boxers moving forward unless those other boxers can grow the followings that these two guys already have. That's just kind of my thoughts on it initially.
And I think that is kind of what I wanted to talk about myself real quick, is the motivation for other boxers to figure out how to cross into those realms as well. Now, what you're going to see is the green print, which is what I like to call what Floyd Mayweather did. And he tended to cross fan bases. He didn't fight a lot of African-American fighters unless they had a really big buzz around them. But in general, he stuck to Hispanic, you know, name brand fighters from other races that, you know, Manny Pacquiao. This is what I think you're seeing with Gervonta Davis. I think Ryan Garcia got his first taste of that, and you might see him willing to get in and fight an African-American fighter in or around his weight class that he might have potential beating, so he can revisit the type of money. You might start to see Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson do the same thing. In my opinion, these are your next batch of pay-per-view stars. And I think that that's what is going to come from all of them. I expect it from Virgil Ortiz. He's going to need to fight some African Americans in order to build his profile and get a crossover. You know, it's kind of a given. If you're even a little bit likable or have a little bit of a hard knock story, your race is going to rock with you, right? So you've got to get other people to tune into your fights. And I think that that's going to really impact it. And I think seeing the green print play out on Saturday night and eventually when the numbers come out, I think it's going to change. I think it's going to set a bar for the process people take. While it may not change what the current numbers might do, next pay-per-views out the rest of the year, besides maybe Canelo, you know, notwithstanding, I think all the other pay-per-views combined might do what this one did. That's just my opinion. And I'm talking across multiple networks unless we get that big heavyweight thing later this year. So I think that, but that'll lead into next year. I think something good is going to happen. And we might see boxing fans open their wallets again and start to support fighters with their dollars. What do you think?
I think the one thing that really needs to happen in order for other guys to get to this route is because the reality is that some guys are just not, they're not able to grow that fan base. They're not able to grow that fanfare. I think of a great example is a guy like Andre Ward. Andre eventually became a pay-per-view fighter. It took him until the very end of his career when he had all the fights that everybody wanted to see him in, pretty much, barring maybe one or two other guys. And then eventually he got 2 fights. Now, neither one of those pay-per-views against Kovalev, broke any world records, but ultimately he was able to say, hey, listen, I was on this platform. I got to that level where I was the main event. I was the draw that had people buying to watch me fight. These other guys are going to have to do a lot more, I think, similar to what Andre did, a lot more similar to what Canelo has done early in his career, which is taking a lot of these risky fights, these dip fights, main events on other people's pay-per-view cards, in mid 50-50 fights that are actually toss-up fights, in order to garner the kind of support and the interest level that it would take in order for yourself to be warranted on that pay-per-view platform. It's really difficult now, man. I mean, especially for American fans. I mean, we're paying upwards of $60, $70, $80. They're talking, like you mentioned, about that heavyweight tournament. That's going to be $120, $130 pay-per-view. It's really difficult to get people to pull out their wallet and pay that, for a guy that they're fighting somebody they really don't want to see with, which is why some of these pay-per-views have, quite honestly, they flopped. When you talk about Wilder's last pay-per-view, when you talk about Ruiz against Areola, when you talk about who's the other guy that Wilder fought, Ortiz against Martin,
Ruiz.
or Ortiz Ruiz, Ortiz Martin, like those are fights that people were not clamoring and demanding. So I don't think that they would really do well even when they made those fights. But because of the purse demands, the networks are saying, hey, listen, I'm not going to risk my money that you're guaranteed to get. You're going to have to get it on pay-per-view and hope that these fans will buy this fight and pay your purse. We'll give you this bare minimum and you can make the rest on pay-per-view.
I think at a $60 or $75, I can't remember, I did the math, but to get to 11 million. So if you're going to give just the main event fighters 5 million each, you've got to sell like 150,000 pay-per-views. And a lot of those guys aren't even reaching 100. So I agree with you that the marquee matchups have to take place in order to justify the number. If I'm going to see the four of the top 8 or 10 best heavyweights on one card, I'll probably spend over $100 for that, because I know I'm gonna get a lot of shit I like in that card. And I think that that's some of the issues that we're experiencing with the pay-per-view. And I think that a print has been laid out. These guys just have to also create a personality and go with it. They have to take a little bit of that wrestling, a page out of wrestling, and become a heel, do what you need to do, but get people talking about you that's gonna want to spend money to see you get knocked out, which is what happened to Floyd Mayweather. People were paying to see him lose, and he just didn't. But they still kept paying because they're like, this is the guy that's going to eventually beat him. So I think that that's what's going to probably be the biggest thing that to turn it over. But guys, we'd love to get your thoughts. What do you think is going to happen with pay-per-view going forward? Do you feel like this fight is going to set a standard for either the order of operations to get there, or the amount of money, the amount of views that some of these future fights can get, because maybe guys are starting to align to have to fight? So this has been T, that's Q. Until the next time, we're out. This is the Mic Check Podcast. Peace.